Hello, everyone. My name is Olive, and I just want to talk about something real quick, something that I have not talked about and have been wanting to talk about for a very long time. All my life, people have really joked about me being an Oreo or whitewashed or just straight up call me white. And there'd be times where I would actually, joke along with them, or I would even start with the joke. And there was times that I would do that and it would just seem like all fun and games. And then other times I would feel like a tug at my heart and it was just like guilt. And I was like, where is this coming from? And I just never understood it. I was confused about this feeling. I didn't really understand why I would have it because I would make those jokes all the time because they were just jokes at the time. But then it got a little out of control. It got to the point where people would actually call me white. People would actually say that I am white or that I talk white or act white. And I really don't understand what it means to act white, but in order to understand what it means to act white, we have to understand what it means to act black. The definition of acting black, according to Urban Dictionary, which I would consider like the people's dictionary, like everyday people can go on there and write definitions that wouldn't be in dictionaries, regular dictionaries. Acting black is, quote, any forms of deliberately or unintentionally simplifying vocabulary and pronunciation of such which includes but is not limited to slang terminology, speech slurring, and destabilizing sentence structure. In addition, the act of being excessively irritable with a heightened emotional reaction, violent or otherwise, to everyday occurrences. Isn't that amazing that we would all read that definition and we would probably all nod our heads and be like, yeah, that's pretty accurate to what I hear. So basically, to act black means that you are uneducated, you slur your words, you are violent, and you are basically just irritable in every way. And it's weird that black people still then get mad at me for acting white. I mean, why would you want to act black if that's what that means? And then whenever I look up acting white on Urban Dictionary, nothing really comes up. It just talks about racist black people or country hicks. But we all know that's not what that really means. Simply by saying that a black person acts white, you're saying that they enunciate their words, that they don't use slang, that they speak politely or normally. And also, I would be called white for the way that I walk and for the way that I present myself. During this entire Black Lives Matter movement, we not only need to be talking about the justice system, we also need to talk about the tainted system that is inside all of our heads that makes us believe that we're not black if we act a certain way. Just because rap isn't my favorite genre doesn't mean I'm not black. Just because I had my hair relaxed for the majority of my life doesn't mean I'm not black. And just because I have privilege financially doesn't mean I'm not black. And that last one is the hardest thing for people to swallow. As a kid, I often hated my black skin. I felt like I didn't really fit in as an African American because I had money and I had education. But the sad thing is that white people really instilled this way of thinking into my head from a very young age. Every time I can remember as a kid that we talked about poor people, it was always a person of color. It was like black people are just made to be poor. And it's sad that that was my way of thinking as a kid. That I felt ashamed for having money, even though my dad worked his ass off to get all of that money. This way of thinking, it just needs to change. Black people should want to get a better education. They shouldn't want to stick with what white people gave us. So whenever I speak proper, it shouldn't be called acting white. And also, black people should want to be wealthier. We shouldn't have to be kept with this stigma that white people gave us from 400 years ago back in slavery. Basically saying, you have nothing, you are nothing, you get nothing. Why should privilege only be given to white people? The definition of whitewashed when talking about racial issues is, quote, a derogatory term used to describe a minority who has assimilated with Western society. The whitewashed person does not necessarily abandon his or her own culture, but rather embrace others beside his or her own. Some people take it as a compliment, while other people take it as an insult. So this is basically what I've done, but why wouldn't anyone want to do this? Why is there such a need to divide in America? And whenever I'm saying this, I'm not saying that it's okay for white people to go around saying the N-word, or that it's okay for them to keep on benefiting from our culture. But what I'm saying is people need to stop getting mad at other people for asking ignorant questions. Keep in mind that I'm saying people, I'm not talking about a certain race. Why not explain and educate that person instead of just getting mad at them and letting them continue to be ignorant? And by the way, this goes for all ethnicities, not just for Black people. We all need to be kinder to each other, really, respectfully too. Instead of calling a Black person white for liking white artists, how about all races go and explore all different types of genres from different cultures that they don't know about? What we should do is we should understand and respect each other's cultures and even share parts of each other's cultures respectfully. But what we shouldn't do is call another Black person white for having wealth or for having a proper education whenever that just resembles the most dominant race in America right now. White culture does not mean educated, well-disciplined, even-tempered. It doesn't mean nice. It doesn't mean put together. It doesn't mean wealthy. It doesn't mean any of that. Black culture doesn't mean loudness, poverty, illiteracy, violence, poorly put together. It doesn't mean that you're hood or gangster. And that's what we have to get out of our heads. This way of thinking about Black people has just been butchered and dramatized on television and movies and music for far too long. Unfortunately, we can't even say that it's just white people doing this. It's actually Black people too. This all started with slavery and taking away Black people's rights, our education, our language, our identity. And then just continued with African Americans having to come up with their own English called African American Vernacular English. It's a real thing. We had to come up with it to help us communicate with each other. In other words, we weren't allowed to read, write, speak properly, and this all just caused the speech slurring and the slang to help us understand each other. And when African Americans did start to get educated, our education system was, and still is, far worse than it is in white communities. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was able to see the vast difference on both ends. And I felt bad for going to a white school, even though it meant that I got a better education, because I got to see the poorer schools. And I was like, I should be there because I'm Black. When African Americans today get well educated, they're considered Black because Black people are brainwashed to think that we are just good for nothing, poor, violent animals. And that's not what we are. And see, we won't admit that that's how we view ourselves, as poor, violent, and uneducated, but it's because that's all happening subconsciously. This has all been passed down for 400 years. We have to change that way of thinking within ourselves. And white people, you have to change that way of thinking about Black people as well. Only recently are African Americans starting to come out with more movies and TV shows that don't show African Americans as hood or illiterate or bitchy or loud or stubborn or uneducated, or a thug. And thank God, because it's been a long time coming. And that's only the start of this long and painful journey that we're gonna have to go through. But the hardest part is getting Black people and white people to change how they see each other and themselves. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this gave you guys an insight to a different side of things. I hope it educated you in some way. And I don't want to make this seem all negative and stuff. This is a very positive speech. I want to show that we're recognizing things that we haven't been able to recognize in the past, and we can change. So let's continue to change. And let's continue to not only change ourselves, but let's continue to change the justice system, because it is messed up right now. And I think we all know that. At least I hope we all know that. Okay, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.